Helen Tarrant, and today we're going to be talking about commercial property zoning, right? The exciting world of zoning, right? Well, for most of you, you probably don't really want to know about zoning, but it is important in commercial property, especially when you want to know what you can do, what you can't do, but mostly how that relates to your tenants, right? Because what can you do in a residential property or residential zoned commercial, right? So a lot of the houses that are converted to commercial are usually close to a commercial centre. And then while they're zoned residential, they're most likely going to be high density residential or at least medium density residential for them to be allowed to convert to a commercial space. Usually low density residential is very hard to convert to a commercial. So it's usually your medium and most of the time is high density commercial that high density residential that get converted to commercial. So if you're in a residential zone, you can still have a commercial property. What you can do with that commercial property is you can put medical, allied health, dentist, so anything around there, and you could definitely look at putting childcare in there or convert it to childcare. So those are the things that actually are perfect for your residential with commercial. A lot of times you also have what they might call a neighborhood center or neighborhood area or a neighborhood zoned, and that is a commercial zoning for a neighborhood strip of shops, which allows mostly for retail and sometimes office space, but definitely not for warehousing type of tenants. And because, people don't want warehouses in areas like that. So most likely those things are usually attached behind a childcare or near other areas where you have your high density residential. Or you might be in a total suburbia and you have a strip of shops, right? So those are called neighborhood. And neighborhood usually allows for retail. So that might be supermarkets, that may be definitely your cafes, bakeries, maybe even hairdressers and beauty, all your restaurants and maybe even a pharmacist. Sometimes a GP, but most of the time it's to do with retail, right? So that's the type of tenant you can have in there. So your butchers and things like that. So that's your specialty delis. So that's your neighborhood zone. And you see that quite a lot. And you see that especially around the regional areas where there's a lot of neighborhood zoning as well. And you also sometimes get neighborhood zoning where you have partly commercial at the front and residential at the back, because that used to be where you have your milk bars, right? You have your milk bars or your convenience stores where you have people operating from the front and they actually live at the back as well. So that's your other commercial zoning. The other ones that come through this, that are taken for granted is you've got business centers and commercial centers, or which is zoned for the commercial hub of a city. So those things are given, right? You can do high-rise commercials of 3, 4, 5, or 10 stories. You can do mixtures like in Surfers Paradise when they have no height restriction. You can do commercial with residential above, and also in areas where you already are seeing a retail and office space. You don't even really need to check the zone. It is what it is, right? But what's interesting is the zoning for industrial. Zoning for industrial is actually quite important because zoning for industrial allows you to do light industrial, medium industrial, or heavy industry, right? And there are actually 3 very different types of zoning that allows for the different type of tenants. So your light industrial typically is your tilt slab warehouses, small warehouses in a hub or in a business park, those small business warehouses. So they're 200 to 400 square meters, usually with a mezzanine floor, allowable for an office space where people come and pick up goods as well. Plenty of parking is needed, because you've got visitors, you've got people coming in and out, and you've got turning bays and areas for people to do trucks and deliveries. But they're typically what we call small business operations. In there, you'll be able to say that these light industrials will allow for martial arts schools, that will ask for dance schools. You can put community halls in there and gatherings in there. You could do allied health, or you could do allied health like equipment distributions out of there. Sometimes, and most of the time, where you're looking at commercial kitchens, people are prepping food and doing distributions. That is in your light industrial zones. So a lot of these things are your trade kind of tenants, and you can do business to consumer, not all the time to operate a retail store, but for people to do pickup. And you might find the areas where they have sort of like a pop-up, they can have a discount store where people come there. They really are manufactured, but you can pick up, or you can quickly buy an outfit or something, and kids clothes, baby goods, things that they would distribute online. They could, you can also go there and pick it up. So that's those type of warehouse, and they hold their value really well and is the most popular type of investment at the moment. But that is usually your zoning. Now, to be a warehouse zoning or zone industrial, there is criteria as how much office space or how much working space versus how much warehouse space. And typically that's anywhere from 20-80 is the split, going up to maybe 40-60 is the split, depending on how much parking you have, depending on what's in the light industrial parks, and depending on how close you are to a center as well. But typically when it's 80-20, you've got 80% warehouses, which means you've got the clearance for the warehouse. You usually have 1 or 2 roller doors. You've got a little office, or maybe you go up the stairs to a mezzanine office and you still have clearance. It's mostly warehouse. Now, this is where you run into trouble, where most people go, well, I'm a business that operates out of there. I'm B2C as well as B2B. I do distributions, but I need a hell of a lot more operational space for my staff members, and I also maybe need a meeting room. So they tend to convert that. So downstairs they make it into a meeting room, upstairs they make it more. Now they've made it into more a 40-60 or 50-50. Which then makes it non-compliant, and then you've got a change of use. So what happens with a change of use is that you have to apply to the council or your local authorities, depending on where you are located in which state, but the local council, to apply for a change of use, because you're no longer a warehouse or industrial. You're now more maybe a retail. Now you're more office space driven. So you have to really get an approval to have your business in there, right? There's allowable businesses and there's businesses that are not allowable. And sometimes that requires you to do an extra contribution to the council because now that's changed. Sometimes things are not allowed because there's just not enough parking spaces, or sometimes it's it's not, you just operate. You have tenants who operate from there without council approval, or you as an owner-occupier may operate out of there without council approval. But the thing is, the moment the tenant moves out, it becomes compliant because all the structure is gone. The moment you move out of your business, it becomes not compliant again. So it's really tenant specific, and it's really up to the tenant to get that approval. If it's not, and they come and the council comes and gets shut down, it's really their issue, not yours. You just got to make sure that's clear, but it's worth monitoring as well. So that's light industrial. Then we have medium industrial. So medium industrial is freestanding industrial property, usually on 1,000 or 2,000 square meters of land. And you have probably somewhere around 50-60% site coverage, which is site coverage quite a lot, where you are going to have mostly a warehouse, large format warehousing, and you're going to have parking around the area. Most places probably already concreted, so you've got the heart stand there. And it's mainly for people who are in freight, people who are like, your manufacturing type of tenant. So joineries, maybe they're sort of excavators, so they're parking their trucks, vans there. Potentially they might be doing some kind of manufacturing, or they might be sort of the storage and giant warehouses for things like a pet barn, or another one of those logistics sort of online stores where they're sort of much larger and they're doing things on site as well. So a lot of that's around the bathroom, trade, building kind of welding kind of tenancy that you have. They tend to be really long-term tenants. Some of them will have hoists, some of them will have spray booths, some of them will really be really entrenched in the business, and once it's there, it's going to be rough and dirty, the property, but they're going to be there for the long term as well. So that is really where you are going to, that's where your medium impact industrial is. Now, most people get medium impact industrial or medium industrial. You can divide that into two, a larger warehouse into two. You just got to make sure they don't conflict each other as they come around. So the best is one goes one side, the other one goes the other side, and there's a way of getting out, whichever way you are. That is the best way. And of course, there is the idea of sort of how much density you have in there, because medium impact is actually the type of tenant in there. So, your trucks and things coming through and how much impact they have on the land and if you get more tenants, it becomes, the density of it becomes more, it goes the other way, it becomes sort of more light industrial because these tenants are not manufacturing tenants anymore. So that may or may not affect the use. but mainly it's a logistic point of view as well. So you don't want, I've seen medium impact when one tenant is actually blocking the driveway of another tenant because they do repairs, and the other tenant is also a repair tenant, maybe for aircon, or the other one does it for trucks or caravans, and they end up blocking each other's way, and they end up being in a kerfuffle, right? So that doesn't work. And then finally, we talk about heavy industry. So heavy industry is your large land. So we're talking minimum 5,000 square meters to possibly 7,000 square meters to 10,000 square meters and beyond. A lot of times, if you're doing something like for toll, it will have almost no building on it. It will just be a hard stand where they can put their shipping containers on there, and they've got really large semi-trailers coming through. If it's sort of, a lot of the dairy farmers, when they do the freights and cold storages are in the heavy industry because there's a lot of transportation. Things like when they're doing builds, like if they have construction, industrial infrastructure builds, they're often in heavy industry. And some training organizations where they're teaching people to drive trucks and stuff are in heavy industry. So your large format industrial has a lot of land. Very little building occupation, is probably somewhere around 20 to 30% of building, but mostly 70-80% of land. It's the land they actually need, and that's the value, right? So that the value is actually in the land, less than that. So, but heavy industry allows you to do a lot more. You can, definitely open up, and heavy industry gives you the option that in the future, as the area gentrifies, I'm getting fancier, as the area gentrifies, you would find that there's ability to be able to really change that into medium impact and then to light impact, and the value is into uplift that through a development of putting other parts of warehouses in there, or restructuring the layout where you've got other sheds and warehouses, and you can put different types of tenant in there. So that's the benefit of it. But as it is, you'll find that you get a lot of land. For the same $1 million, you might be buying in the city. You're buying fringe of any city or fringe of any regional area, but you're getting a lot more land, and the tenant is obviously using it as very functional space as well. So that's really your kind of zoning explained. I mean, there's various ways of different zoning, and different states are termed differently, different things. One of the things to watch out for, is things where you've got heritage or a heritage overlay. So you've got heritage, which is, registered for heritage, or heritage interested, which is the local council's deem of heritage. And if it's got that heritage, sometimes it's really hard if you have to keep that facade, especially in regional as well. So these are the things to look at. I normally wouldn't touch heritage because it's harder, even with a council interest, depending on what kind of specifications, you can make it harder to maintain in the future as well. But with all that in mind, there's many varying forms. It depends on what you plan to do and the type of tenant you want in that property, and what you could bring to the table with an uplift in the future of the property or the area. If the area looks like it's gentrifying from heavy industry to light, so you're going to get an uplift in the value of the land. If it's looking like it's going from medium to light, it means that you'll get the uplift by building something on it as well. So no matter what it is, when you're looking at zoning, it's a long-term play. It's maybe a 7 to 10 year play to what you would do with the property in the future. Right? Some properties, it is as it is. Some properties has the ability to build and develop. So you got to look at your long-term strategy and work out exactly what you're looking to achieve, right? And with that in mind, if you've got a property and you're not sure if you want to develop, you're not sure what you want to do, reach out to us. HelenTarrant.com, Unicorn Commercial Property. In the meantime, more information and strategies around commercial property, get the book. The link is below. Hit the bell, subscribe. Let me know what else you want to learn, want to know, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.